all A-Plusers out there. It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. This time, of course, we're going to be talking about episode number 43, another really fantastic episode. Before I get this review started, a couple quick announcements I'm going to make. Actually, just really one quick announcement I want to make. This will be the last time I review an episode with this background because starting next week, I will actually be moving to a new apartment. So hopefully, I'll be able to have everything unpacked by then, so I'll have a really nice, aesthetically pleasing background to do my recordings on, but I'm not 100% sure on how long it's going to take me to unpack and then also how to rearrange everything. But regardless, there will be a review up next week. I'm, of course, definitely going to be reviewing episode 44 when it comes out next week, but for now, this is going to be, as far as I know, the last time I'm going to be reviewing Kamen Rider episodes in this room. So, with that all being said, let's, kick back, relax, and enjoy my little review / breakdown of this episode, because it was another really good episode, which isn't surprising, because, I mean, this show has just been on fire, ever since, I want to say, ever since, we really got introduced to Master Logos. I feel like that's when the show has really just been, getting better and better episode by episode, and this episode, of course, is no exception, as we finally get to wrap up the Ren / Desast story arc, which I feel like maybe kind of went on a little bit too long, but I'll get a little bit more into that once we break it all down. Speaking of which, I'm actually going to be talking about that stuff first, even though it all kind of goes on throughout the entire episode. I'm going to get the Desast Ren storyline kind of broken down before I move on to anything else in the episode. So that all being said, let's start this episode out with Desast discovering that his healing factor isn't what it used to be. He's actually struggling a lot more to be able to heal himself, partially because the big bite that was taken out of him in the previous episode, the monster that bit him, ended up absorbing some of his power, as we saw when he was fighting Touma. So we see that Desast here is having a lot of trouble regenerating, but he manages to get it through, and Ren, of course, having heard his conversation with Touma in the previous episode, Ren really wants to go all out with one more fight with him. So the two of them definitely they do one more really awesome battle together. And I gotta say, another thing I've been praising the show a lot about is definitely when it comes to its really good stunt choreography, which is something that Kamen Rider has always been really good at, especially looking at Kamen Rider 01 and then looking at Kamen Rider Saber. It's really cool because I'd actually say Saber might have some fight scenes that are actually better than 01, even though I thought the fight scenes in 01 were also quite incredible. But what I also love here is we get the actor for Ren actually doing some really cool stunts, because we get some out-of-suit fights as well, as kind of Ren gets depowered. I almost want to say demorphed. I feel like that's just my go-to phrase because of Power Rangers. But as he gets kind of powered down, and he's still going after Desast, is still holding his own really well, in his regular human form. And we see, I'm not sure how many times they used the stunt double, or if they even used one at all, but as far as I could tell, I think it was the same actor doing some of these stunts, maybe with the exception of one moment where he does a flip because the camera was kind of far away, so it would have been really easy to have a stunt double and I wouldn't have noticed. But other than that, though, it looked like it had been the same actor doing a lot of his stunts within this fight here, and I absolutely loved it. I thought, they don't do I think I've mentioned this before, they don't do out-of-suit fights too often in the show, but it's really refreshing to see it every now and then, because even especially when they get actors that can do really incredible stunts like this. So it was really cool, even though it didn't last very long. And then, of course, unfortunately, this fight does end in a little bit of a tragedy, because Desast, unfortunately, has been majorly weakened by the monster from the previous episode, and I'm not 100% sure if he was already dying before this fight, but it's kind of clear that this fight definitely didn't help. But it's really cool, the kind of friendship that grew between the two of them, and so as he's about to die, it's kind of a reference to the previous episode when he was wondering why Ren never put I believe red ginger into his ramen, and Ren saying he's not a fan of of it, and there was like a weird conversation. I kind of left it out in the previous review just because it wasn't important to the episode, but here it actually kind of pays off with him dying and his last words being, "Make sure you eat your red ginger," and I thought that was actually pretty funny. So seeing how this arc kind of wraps up, it leaves with Ren not gaining any new power MacGuffin like I kind of assumed it was going to, which I'm actually kind of glad it didn't end that way. I figured there was going to be like just some random power up that he gets because he learns a lesson, and that's not how it happens. It really just goes, he moves on, and he still is able to transform into the regular Kamen Rider that he always does, but he doesn't get like a really cool power up like Rintaro and Touma do. He's just kind of the same, but he accepts that this time. There's no he doesn't hate himself for not being any stronger this time, which is something that I'm actually extremely relieved to see. So it really does show how much he's matured over time during the course of the series. I mean, you look back at my earlier reviews early on in the show, and when Ren had his first introduction, I absolutely hated this dude so much. Like, I straight up wanted to slap him with how much of an arrogant asshole he had been. So it's really refreshing to see him finally kind of grow up and mature by the end of all of this, and it was definitely really sad to see Desast go, because I really was starting to admire the friendship between the two of them. Again, now when I say that this arc dragged, it's more of they started introducing this stuff way too early, to my opinion. The idea of the two of them kind of teaming up, because throughout like the first, like, it feels like first 5 episodes, it was really just like 5 separate like 1-minute scenes maybe at the most, and we really didn't get anything out of these scenes. It was just the two of them would have very small like 1-sentence conversations, and that'd be it. That's all we'd see from it. So I thought it got a lot better once we got to spend more time with them. So I wouldn't have minded this arc dragging on as long as it did if those scenes were longer when it started, but because they were so short, it kind of felt unnecessarily long altogether. I feel like that's kind of my biggest issue with it. Other than that, I do think the way it wrapped up was really good, and I'm glad they didn't go the easy route of just giving Ren like a MacGuffin that grants him this power. I like how he doesn't gain a new power. Like, he gets stronger, but the strength that he gets is more from learning and from actually evolving and adapting like us as humans do. It's not from just some random MacGuffin power up like you would see in Power Rangers Megaforce that Ghost Sage would just be handing out because they earned it. It's nothing like that, which I really enjoyed. So moving on to the next storyline. Actually, sorry, there is one last scene here, is that the Wonder Ride book is still there, but it's completely damaged, so I'm not sure if we're still going to be seeing any more of it. But we might just see Ren kind of keeping it as like kind of a way to remember Desast. That would probably be my guess, but I'm not 100% sure. But then we move on to the actual plot, and this is when the team finds out that Luna is in fact not in the fantasy world, but she's actually in the real world. But unfortunately, she disappears when May actually found her. And luckily, though, the group isn't mad at her or anything like that, because obviously I think they're just relieved to know that she's safe. And it does lead to Rintaro being able to find her later on. And I thought like the interaction between the two of them was actually kind of adorable, especially like, Rintaro, rather than saying human, he always refers to humans as Homo sapiens. And he's like, I was a Homo sapien too, who is now a Kamen Rider. And I just like, I love Luna's interaction with him, just her being like, you're kind of weird. I thought it was kind of adorable, not gonna lie. We then get a really weird moment, and I know this is a kid's show and everything, but I gotta say, I got some major Game of Thrones vibes here, and not in a good way. Essentially, Rika and her brother run into May, and it's clear that like now they've kind of gotten used to the idea with teaming up with the other riders, and we get the older brother trying to thank May, but of course it's a really funny scene because it takes him forever to do it. So he's like, arigato, and it's like so hard for him to say it. I absolutely love that, and it leads to her like kind of grabbing his hand. And this is where the scene gets kind of weird, is that Rika seemingly gets jealous of May holding her brother's hand, and she slashes at the two of them. And I don't know, this is where I get the Game of Thrones vibes, because it's like the relationship kind of comes off to me as Cersei and Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones, and I don't know if that's what they're going for, but that's definitely how it comes off. And I know it's a kid's show, so it's probably not that, but it definitely feels like that for sure. Definitely. But regardless, we then cut to Touma, who finally figures out where Master Logos has been hiding this whole time. And of course, kind of the thing that has been bothering me the last few episodes is it seems like anytime someone finds Master Logos, rather than calling in the rest of the team and, you know, doing a full frontal assault as a team, or sorry, not Master Logos, I apologize, I meant to say Storious, but same thing did happen with Master Logos. Anyways, whenever like any one of them finds like the main villain, they always seem to think it's the better idea to just attack them by themselves, even though it always ends in disaster. And we get that here with Touma, who's about to go in by himself, but is later, of course, accompanied by Rika and her brother, thankfully, as we'll see later on, because they actually become extremely useful in this upcoming fight. But they get there, and we get something really disturbing. We see a bunch of Wonder Ride books, but they have seemingly the souls of, you know, thousands of you know, different people, like different civilians that are just like trapped in those books. And I can only imagine how much pain and suffering they must be going through, because you see all of them just absolutely screaming. And then on top of that, this is where we finally get introduced to the Sophia clone, and you know, they're almost convinced, or Touma is, I should say, not the siblings, but Touma is convinced that it's actually Sophia for a brief moment, just with how much she looks like her. But of course, I feel like the fact that she's not wearing the traditional white dress and she has a little bit of a more menacing look, I feel like that should have easily given it away that it's not her. But we get the piranha monster back from, you know, a few previous episodes that we've seen him in, and he absorbs all of the Wonder Ride books with the souls and Sophia herself. And of course, if you know anything about this monster, it's kind of like, this monster is kind of like Cell from Dragon Ball Z, where like the more he absorbs, the stronger he gets. So he ends up, you know, getting all this power, and Touma, unfortunately, you know, as Touma tries to fight back, it leads to more disaster, because we see him being able to use powers from his opponents. So he's able to use the power from Desast, and then when Touma uses his attack against him, he ends up just being able to absorb that attack and use that against all of them. So because of this, the two siblings want Touma to stay out of the fight, because Touma has the most power, and they're afraid that the more he attacks this thing, the stronger and more unstoppable it's going to get, which I actually do kind of agree with to an extent. Like, I do think that, yeah, that is a really bad thing if it gains too much power, but at the same time, it might be the only power that could stop it at that point. But luckily, the two siblings proved me wrong, as they actually do come close to taking the monster down. However, this monster has one more trick up its sleeve, which I did not see coming, and that is it completely just swallows Storious right then and there. And for a brief moment, I'm like, series finale? I mean, I said it jokingly kind of in my head, knowing that there was going to be something else to happen. But yeah, it was definitely a move I did not see coming, and it was absolutely hilarious to me just because of how unexpected it was. But of course, Storious immediately emerges from the monster and seemingly gains all of the power that the monster had already previously absorbed. That would be my guess, because of how confident he looks when he pops out. So yeah, it seems like Storious is just getting himself stronger and stronger, and now he may be almost borderline unstoppable for this next couple episodes. So I definitely look forward to seeing how that plays out and seeing how much stronger Storious has gotten. I also am really hoping this means that Ren will now join back up with the other writers, now that he's definitely matured a lot and he's no longer kind of the arrogant little prick that we saw in the very beginning of the series. So yeah, overall, guys, this was such an incredible episode. You know, it had almost everything that I love in Kamen Rider. I got a bunch of laughs out of this episode. Some of the fight choreography was absolutely incredible, and then of course I also thought it had a really good emotional punch punch with a couple of scenes, especially when it came to the storyline with Ren and Desast. I feel like this episode just had everything I love about Kamen Rider all in it, and I highly recommend checking this episode out. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the rest of Storious is going to play out now that he has all this power, and see how his plan gets fleshed out at the very end of the series. But guys, of course, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so if you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did, definitely let me know in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. But guys, above everything, just remember to keep it A+. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.